Me, Scape here, who's crowdfunded to create what she calls a beautiful bike trailer, and it caught my eye because it was something really similar to an idea that I also had. So I was excited to see I wasn't the only sort of mad person around. Uh,
Mhm.
so she's planning to create a mobile hub of art, imagination, and connection. And the idea, as she's put it, is to invite people who meet her trailer to imagine our future lives, homes and cities with excitement and hope. Yeah, that sounds right up Transition Street. Amy, shall I give the floor over to you? You're a little bit early too, so take a bit more time if you like.
Fine. So thanks for having me along to talk about the project. It's been really great to hear everyone's work and how ideas are brought to life. So that's what this really is. My project is like it's an idea born of like lots of long, hopeful, frustrated conversations, mainly with my dear friend Hannah, who's here on the left on a lockdown walk. um, yeah, so I'm a photographer and a mom and a climate activist. I shoot weddings and PR and like income, but like activism stuff because that was what I care about. Like, and this is an example on the right. There's some Liberate Tate stuff. Um, I got more involved with the organising side of things when I was living in Vancouver. I was the national coordinator for Extinction Rebellion Canada and had helped it to get established both nationally and locally. And then so I came back to London in late 2019, I decided it was like time to put down my camera because it was like hurting my body and try and get a job somehow doing climate because, you know, it was quite a pressing time to do it. And then 2020 happened and I, like many others, found myself at home managing home learning of my daughter and trying to attend as many online courses and conferences as I was able to do to kind of keep learning and connecting with people. So Hannah and I, we were still job hunting in this really weird time, and we'd meet to walk around like the local marshes to blow off lockdown steam and dream up what our perfect jobs would look like. And we'd also puzzle over why it was so hard and awkward to talk about like climate outside of our activist circles. We noticed how everyone was like always talking about how weird the weather was being. But if you openly said, well, yeah, the climate's changing, people would like kind of freak out about it or just leave, leave the corner of the park you're in. People were just not into it. Despite the fact that, oops, here we go, despite the fact that this from Britain Talks Climate, that most people are actually concerned about climate, like, but just like why, you know, yeah, lots of reports and statistics showing most people are actually worried about it. So why are we so bad at talking about it? And it's because it's really scary and it's awkward and it undermines our sense of safety and control and a whole bunch of other things that make it quite a taboo subject. So Hannah and I, we thought like, wouldn't it be really cool if someone made a welcoming and friendly space where people are encouraged to express their feelings, to ask questions and feel that they aren't alone. But it also didn't look like a traditional activist space because those places are really quite scary for non-activists. We could see that there's like a lot of fear and guilt that blocks people from like looking at it. This space should invite curiosity and hope and with warmth and encouragement, and also to show that many of the solutions to this wicked problem we have can actually make our lives and societies like much better places to be. The better world is possible, but it's not going to happen if we can't even talk about it. So Hannah and I, we also have a shared experience of feeling alone with our worries about the world and then finding our power in our people through getting involved in activism. So this is like the kind of fun stuff we would do. We would like shutting down a coal mine in Merthyr Tydfil. So we really wanted to spread a bit of that like just do it DIY collective magic that happens through participation in like, for example, for us with activist movements such as climate camps and Occupy and Liberate Tate, XR and so forth. We thought it'd be really cool if this place also had clear signs. So we thought the place that we wanted to build would have like signposting to like local stuff going on, like local activist groups or big wider stuff, and just kind of like some support in getting involved. Eventually it dawned on me, like, why don't we make this little weird arc of storytelling and connection? So I started to draw what it might look like. And yeah, maybe it could just be a flight case with some kind of pop-up stand that, like, you know, has like some posters or some books and reports. It could be like a little mini reading room, a mini mobile reading room. Yeah, with like the posters could have QR codes, posters printed on canvas because they're very mobile and robust, and like, you know, and like with QR codes on the posters, so it could take you through to sort of further reading if you were so interested. And but the most really importantly, we wanted to have like a directory of like local stuff going on as well, just so people could see what's going on around them, because there are like so many things happening which just so lots of people don't know about. Like, it's like here in Walthamstow, there's so many projects on that so many people don't know what's going on. It's like quite sad sometimes. So yeah, so at the same time, like the Transition Network, which I was like following very closely, they announced their seed funding program, and it just made, and I met Joe through that Bounce Forward. He helped me connect up with some of that as well. So they announced their seed funding program. It made like a lot of sense to apply. So we did, and I was able to do so through Transition Leytonstone, which is my closest functioning transition group. The local Walthamstow one had dissolved a few years ago, so but Leytonstone were totally up for it. They were like, yes, apply through us, and you know, and then it became more of like a Waltham Forest, because Waltham Forest and Walthamstow are part of the same place. Yeah, so I was able to get £3,500 from the Transition Network's Bounce Forward scheme, which was like great and exciting. It's not like massive amounts of money, but it's enough to kind of like get started. And yeah, so I've and yeah, so then wait, where am I up to? Oh yeah, sorry. So then I needed to get a proper name for it. So I originally it was Nodes of Resilience, but this was a little bit too long and obscure to kind of like, didn't really work. So I was turning over in my head like hubs of resilience, renewal, regeneration, resources, like all these RE words. But at the same time, I was like reading Jeremy Lent's book, The Patterning Instinct, and in it, there was the word Ren, which is a neo-Confucian term, which means a sense of love arising out of the embodied realization of one's intrinsic connectedness with all other beings in the universe. So that's how it became HubRen. It's like hubs of Ren, because I think it's just a really cool word. So Hannah, by this point, had gotten work. She was like still really involved, but around a very busy life. But what she was really integral to was like making sure that we engaged with and paid for like an activist from outside of the usual white middle class kind of, you know, demographic that tends to make up like a lot of like green environmental scenes. So we have made a connection with Serena Solanke, and she's been helping us kind of like just think about things that might not, you know, that we just might have a blind spot to, just being like, because we're two white women and, you know, our experiences are quite narrow. Yeah, so that's been like really, I think, a really important part of the project, and is still ongoing. So yeah, so then I built a website, started to put it out through the Transition Leytonstone networks and flyers in local shops. I was looking for like artists and writers or editors to help me sort of get the first set of posters like created. Okay, okay, here we go. Oh wait. Oh yeah, so yeah, these are the first set of posters. So the goal is to create like a library of posters that are interchangeable. Once the collection is big enough, you could like kind of swap ones in or out, like depending on who you're kind of on your audience, because like the hub could be like really kid friendly if you're going to visit a school, but then if you're going to go to like a market or something, you could like a food market, you could have something that's a little bit more like food and agricultural related, you know, because different communities respond to different messages. Like there was the recent report, it's not so recent now, but it's quite recent, by Climate Outreach about different messaging for 7 different sectors of UK. Has really kind of formed that part of thinking, really. So ideally, I'd like the posters to also be co-created where possible. It would be wonderful to take the hub into a community space, like a school or a place of worship, for it to be like a conversation starter in some cases. And you could create like a poster with willing participants, one that speaks with their voice, and about their own experiences, or like their knowledge, their hopes and their fears. So then like it's a bit more kind of community owned as well. We have 5 posters so far. So the one on the right is the Solastalgia one, that's like about ecological grief. That one's illustrated by Simona Tyrone. She's a Leytonstone artist that saw one of the flyers up in a pub. The Extract and Amplify one has been illustrated by Chizzy. She's a Nigerian, Igbo, British heritage fashion designer and artist. So she was really excited about this project and really wanted to illustrate one about capitalism, extractive capitalism and domination, the kind of mindset that underpins a lot of things, a lot of our problems. I then reached out to James Mckay. Oh, so these will be printed A2, so they're quite big. They're quite like big posters and like, yeah, so then I reached out to the artist James Mckay to see if he'd be up for us using his art for this like posters we had an idea for this like message from the future. So this really paints a picture of like a decarbonized future. And they're really, some transition people might recognize the pictures from like transition network stuff and a book, Paul Chatterton's book about decarbonized cities. So yeah, they're really, I really like these ones. I'm not a designer. I've been just putting them together myself. I'm not a designer. This is all very DIY. So, but this though this is one was recently done. This design agency did reach out and they were like offered to do branding and do a poster for us, which was really cool. So I was like, yes, you guys can do the actions poster, the one about like how individual actions are really important, but they're not the thing that's going to get us to where we need to go. It's like we need to have like more of a wider social change and like where we need to find our power and hold power to account. This is really hard. This is a really hard one to do. I was a really annoying design client. Like there was a lot of going back and forth, and yeah, this is a hard one. And I think it's okay. I think it's going to be an ongoing process. But what I really do like is in the corner here is this this like Venn diagram of action by Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson of the All We Can Save project. I think it's really good. Like, what brings you joy? What are you good at? What needs to be done? And this is like what you should do. So I haven't tested this one out because it's only just been done. I tested the first 4 out in my front driveway when I participated in the E17 art trail with like a work in progress version of the hub, because the E17 art trail was all about possible futures, and I was like, I really need to be in it even though I don't have my bike trailer, and just to mainly meet people and meet other groups, and it was really interesting. This is Simon Lewis on the right. He's like a friend of ours, so he came along to do like a talk to a climate scientist session. That was really quite fun. So a few people came and had a chat with him, and we had a beer, and it was cool. And what I did learn was thresholds. Like, people really struggle to cross thresholds. Like, even though this gate was wide open, you really had to like encourage people to come in. Like, really, people would just like stick their heads in and kind of want to come in. It was really, really interesting, like how thresholds are scary for lots of people. I also found it really interesting how like a lot of the conversations didn't happen there. They happened after. Like lots of people would find me later to talk about it. It was like people are really shy. Like I'd have like really interesting conversations with people like away from the hub as well, because they just knew, oh, I can actually talk to her about it. So it was really, really interesting, like how it played out. And I just discovered I actually really like talking to people about climate and solutions, and I can talk about it with people all day. So yeah, although people are really obsessed with recycling and China. So, you know, that was kind of, yeah, yeah, lots of talk about China. Anyway, so the big news is I now do have a cargo bike. Wait, come on. Sometimes it wants to go, but then it doesn't. Can't seem to change the slide. Anyway, I have a cargo bike. And this guy, Chris, contacted me. He's really, oh, there we are. It went to the cargo bike. Here we go. This is Chris, and he got me a cargo bike. It's from this cool group called Mad Leap. So it was, but not, they were using it to collect food waste to put into their biodigester. but they're not using it at the moment and might not for a while. So they were like, they heard about the project through Chris, and they were like, you can have the cargo bike, you just might need to give it back to us at some point in the future. Like, so yeah, so that's what I'm working on now, is like turning this into a cool thing, and the lid lifts off, and I've got lots of ideas to change it. So that's like quite exciting, and that's like the best thing about this project is like all the really great like connections that have opened up with just so many great people and organizations, just from like neighbors and people at school to like people like Chris, and then like more people through the transition network, and then the like the climate museum. I've been in contact with the climate museum UK, and I've been invited to become like with the HubRen project to become an associate with them. So there's like a really, and they've got like so many great resources, and have been thinking about how we talk about climate like a lot longer than I have in a much more professional capacity. So that's like really something I'm super thrilled about. Yeah, like in the longer term, I'd really like to have a model that's like replicable. I'd really like a community group to see the hub and think like, this is something we can do. And then just to be able to like say, here's the plans, here's some PDFs, here's some things that worked, here's some things that didn't, and like help, you know, I'd like to see other people doing it. I'm like really inspired by the DIY ethos of like 90s radical movements and climate camp. I'd like to bring some of that magic into spaces that are really just been colonized by capitalism and advertising and obedient like mass consumerism. There's been a big, for me, I feel like there's been a really huge failure of like storytelling and imagination around climate change and our response to it. I want to help change that story and create like a really street level, face-to-face interaction that like builds empathy, understanding, connection, and courage. In particular, the courage to take real, meaningful action together. So yeah, so that's the Hub project. Yeah, so that's what we're doing.